Okay, now we're here. Welcome to another episode of Vancouver Real. We had some audio technical difficulties, so that's why this episode is probably starting very
Late.
jaggedly, a little rough. But we're back, we're going. I know they can hear us, and I think we're ready to rock and roll. So my name is Mike Zaremba. Welcome back to the first day of the rest of your life. And joining me, Andy, thank you for sorting that out.
Well, actually, I think you sorted most of it out, but
You executed.
I executed it. But it's funny because we just floated right before this, and the stress levels are now jacked right
I know
up
we
again.
just completely undid the float.
I was definitely decompressing and had my my stress response lowered, and now it's right back through the roof, which is maybe good because I'm potentially more alert and ready to have a good conversation.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, anyways, we are podcasting here at a float house at 70 West Cordova Street. Floathouse.ca is our website. We specialize in flotation therapy, also known as sensory deprivation tanks or flotation tanks. And if you want to check out a float, you can use the promo code VancouverReal and save 20% on your next single float. And we're not going to waste any more time on anything like that. We're going to dive into our episode today, and because we're really happy that returning back for a third time now? No. Dr. Carlos de León, the founder of Ontogony. Well, first of all, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
And we are going to be diving into a conversation around shamanism. But before we do, I just want to kind of do a little personal intro for Ontogony and this community that you're creating, or that you've created, and what it's all about. So Ontogony is a fusion of ancient paths that reveal true nature in a modern world, and techniques for the evolution into the self with a capital S. And so basically, Carlos, you've been like a lifelong student of these ancient paths, as well as bringing in modern, more contemporary elements of psychotherapy and psychology. And basically, you blend things such as Taoism, Tantra, shamanism, and you bring them all together and you help people, kind of like discover themselves in a new and different way and their higher self and more of it's definitely a spiritual path, if you would say. But I guess maybe I'll step back up. What is Ontogony to you? And why did you create it?
Well, Ontogony is just a name. It's an excuse to try to rescue first all traditions that are disappearing. Second, reinterpret the traditional teaching, because not all the people really are in the, let's say, frequency to learn in a traditional context. So we need to reinterpret the traditional teachings. And third, we are trying to find a universality in the teaching, but without going into the superficiality, but trying to go deep, but find universality in the paths.
Right, and not dogmatically either.
No, dogma it has not worked for many millenniums. It's not working for humanity.
That's right. Yeah, it doesn't work. So that's neat. So you're trying to bring together these paths for many different reasons. I really appreciate the fact that you're bringing them back so that they don't get necessarily lost or forgotten. I think that's something we touched base on a little bit in our first sit down together, because you were saying, like, there are these ancient traditions that have, some of them have become lost, and different dialects are being lost, and then so the teachings of those dialects or these teachers who were lineages, they're disappearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of your motivation, is to keep them alive.
Sure.
Yeah, interesting. But today we're going to dive into the topic of shamanism. Now, Andy and I, we've been personally exploring shamanism for 4 or 5 years now, and primarily with plant medicines such as ayahuasca and mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, huachuma or San Pedro, and even the sacred vilca, which is a Peruvian seed as well. And so exploring shamanism in that way. And now that's just one part of shamanism for sure. But from your perspective, what would you say shamanism is to someone that's like doesn't really know, and you're just explaining to them for the first time? How would you describe shamanism?
Well, shamanism is like the natural response of a human being when starts to be aware that first there's something extraordinary, and it's the reality of death, and we are going to die, definitely. So then comes the question, what is the meaning of myself in this life? And then, of course, we try to understand the environment around us, nature, other people, other beings around us, and try to learn to live in a better way, harmonious way, and bring knowledge from that.
Right. Yeah. So having this relationship with nature, because we are a part of nature, we've come from nature, and as our consciousness has evolved as humans, as species, we start to realize, well, one, our mortal fate, and that we are mortal beings, and then we can have this existential curiosity of like, well, yeah, why are we here? And then relating to the natural environment, and where do we fit in, and how do we relate, and why are we here, and those kind of big questions, right? Sure. That probably even before language happened, humans were exploring, you know? So like, I'm kind of curious what your thoughts with this. Take me back to, say, an old culture, an old species, of humans who are maybe the first shaman. And what would you imagine that gentleman or a to have been kind of like? I'm curious if you have you ever thought about, have you ever learned that the initial shamanic kind of experience, and like this is something I thought about, like what would that have been like? And maybe they were entranced by in the fire, or they were going through a fast or starvation, and they had this kind of like experience that
so you're
opened
asking
them
how
up.
It was discovered?
Yeah, and just like, have you ever thought about that?
I think there's always some people are a little more aware, and being more aware, they see things that the rest they don't see. Mm. And if they have a good heart, they try to use that experience for benefit of the tribe at that time, let's say, or the group. And they were the first shamans, the first priests, the first teachers. For example, the word that was used to describe a Taoist practitioner for a long time is, I don't pronounce it correctly because I don't pronounce good Chinese, it's Wu, and means basically shaman. So for many centuries, a Taoist practitioner was called a shaman. So basically, shamanism was the beginning of all the religions in one sense.
Right.
Then it started to slowly specialize, and then we have the different developments of culture, and we specialize that type of experience. So we had the priests, and then the shamans, and then the healers, and all this type of thing.
Right. Yeah. So a specialization happened.
In my understanding, shamanism, there's sort of the altered states of consciousness, which can be induced by, say, plant medicines or by rattles and drums or chanting. And there's also the sort of the medicinal aspects of it, using pieces of nature to create different potions, medicines to help heal people, and also sort of the understanding of reality in the universe. When I think of it, those are the three broad concepts that I generally think of. Would you think those are correct?
Well, an explanation is correct because you're making basically clear your point of view. That's okay. Yes, I mean they are correct. We have first understand from the more traditional perspective what would consist the shamanic knowledge. First of all, we make, for example, in Mexico, a big difference between what would be a brujo and a curandero.
Yes.
So a curandero will be called a healer in English, and it's a person that will learn different ways of helping to heal not only physical but also psychological and spiritual sicknesses. You'll learn massage and herbology and these type of things, but also what will be a little bit the spiritual sciences and all that. The brujo will learn the same thing, but the big difference is the brujo will heal or treat or hurt other people, getting a personal benefit of it.
So the brujo is like the sorcerer.
Yeah, you could say it's a sorcerer, but they could heal also. So many brujos actually present themselves as healers, but secretly, let's say, there are sorcerers in that.
Is that really common? Like
In Mexico, it's totally common. In Latin America, it's common.
When I've heard in Peru,
Bali, it's totally common. In India, it's totally common.
What sort of things can these brujos do? Like, how can they influence people?
Well, they can basically force the person to certain actions. They can make a person sick, and they can kill a person. They can do many things.
And how would they go about doing that?
Well,
not that I'm trying to learn how to do it.
I'll give you the recipe how to kill somebody. Basically, there are different elements. Of course, one is the physical element, for example, poisons, toxic herbs. For example, in Mexico, they use an herb that is from the Datura family to basically make a person stupid, literally, physically stupid, but that's through brain damage.
Wow.
So they can submit their will to them. But also then you have other, let's say, magical more psychic type of things, and also suggestions. So it's a combination of things.
Right. I've heard like love magic is very common. To try to get somebody to fall in love with somebody else.
Yeah, that's totally common. And also the cure for that. So you suspect you have been witchcraft. That says the hex, but you go to a healer, and the healer will remove the work.
Wow. From your opinion, why do some people become brujos? Like, why go down that path if ultimately...
all little people, they love power. So basically, it's a way of having some kind of dignity, let's say.
So it's like someone that's not willing to do their own healing to the greater depth, and they kind of learn these techniques and basically exploit them.
You know, for example, Adler, in his individuation therapy, for him, the neurosis is resumed in inferiority complex. In one way or another, we feel that we are not enough. So either we take a role of being inferior, or try to superinflate our role and then have some power. And so the brujos has the same motivation that many other people in power. They feel inferior, they want power.
Right.
But the brujo and curandero is just the two minor aspects of shamanism. In Mexico, for example, you can be a healer or a brujo or sorcerer, and you are not considered a man or a woman of knowledge. That's a different thing.
Yeah. Okay.
A man of knowledge is totally different. They will learn about healing, about sorcery, but they go beyond that, and actually their search is more for wisdom and freedom, and more than healing or procuring personal power in that sense.
Would you say like enlightenment?
Enlightenment will be
universal knowledge, universal understanding.
Yeah, that's why from the Taoists we learned that it's just a little jump, and now you are in a spiritual enlightenment path. And the thing, what distinguishes, for example, shamanism or other spiritual traditions is that power is searched, even if you are searching for knowledge or you want to be healer or you want to be sorcerer. Power is searched by the three of them, but the motivation is totally different.
Okay.
So basically, a shaman will have some role similar to what would be in the all cultures, a prophet, a priest also, psychotherapy, they're talking more, but also they will be able to heal and all that, but their personal interest will be to benefit the group of people, not themselves.
How do you know, like if you're a person and you're kind of learning these things, how do you know your motivation is pure?
Yeah, that's the big question in all the paths, probably.
Right.
Like very clearly, for example, in Kabbalah, it is said that always start our path as humans being quite egotistical, with the desire to receive for our own benefit.
Sure.
And maturity in a soul will mean that now you start to receive also for the benefit of others. And part of the real sign of maturity will be to basically put the others first, So compassion would be the primordial thing.
Right.
So your motivation could be disguised saying that it's for others, but you're looking for yourself.
Sure.
So if you are not honest with yourself, it's very difficult to know.
You know, in the Amazon, they talk quite a bit about the principle of Aini, or reciprocity, and that becomes to me like a slippery slope almost, right? Because it's like you should be, rewarded, or you should receive some sort of benefit for performing these services, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, how much do you take? Versus how much you give, and it's like if you're out of balance there, then you're kind of dabbling in not so good territory.
It's a bit weak, the position, because that puts you just in karma. Let's balance karma, but we want freedom. We don't want to live in karma. Who cares if it's good or bad karma? Karma is enslavement. We need to go a little bit higher than that.
I was just saying, I feel like it's a very fine line that you have to walk, and it could be very easy to be pulled off that path.
Yeah, but it's not so fine if you think like this. Better don't put interest in what you get and just give.
Yeah.
And then you don't need to worry about the gray area. Let other people worry about that.
So right. just worry about your own intentions.
Yeah, and give. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I kind of want to back up a little bit just to that idea of pretty much everybody having this inferiority complex.
Yep.
And just kind of talking a little bit more about that, like what is that, and yeah, maybe what are the initial steps to start to deal with it and conquer it, or not conquer, but you know what I mean, like integrate it.
Yeah, like in a very simple way, we are designed, I would say, by God to be beings that can experience unconditional love. But unluckily, we have inherited a civilization in this planet that lives in conditional love. We conditionate love and attention and all that. So when we are born in an environment that is already conditioning the experience of love. And conditioning the experience of love means that you don't receive a complete acceptance of what you are. You need to be a little bit different or to change something to be accepted and to be loved. And right away, we strike in the heart of the babies saying, you are not enough. You have to change.
Is that impossible to avoid?
No. In another planet, no. Here.
Okay.
It's how we have built our reality.
For the human condition.
We have built that reality. We have created that collective reality.
Yeah, I mean, as a new father, like, I had this very intense moment maybe 2 weeks ago, and I viscerally felt how innocent my son is. He's so innocent, and like I've had moments where I'm holding him or feeding him, and I'm like, I don't want to be here. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to be selfish and like be done with this activity, and
have your baby.
And I caught myself, and it really bothered me. It really bothered me. I'm like, that's not right. This child is so innocent, and here I am already smearing my personal psychic crap onto him.
And you know what's the problem? That the kids receive that with the body.
Right.
So for us with the mind, we can understand
it's
or not.
It's all vibration, right?
But the message, we're giving it with body language.
Yeah.
And we start molding their personality with those messages.
Yeah.
An advice for parents.
Yes,
and
please.
for you. Don't worry if you are going to neurotize your kid.
Okay.
It will happen.
It's inevitable.
So just inevitable. Just enjoy them, love them, and make the best.
We're all going to have our neuroses, and we're all going to have to deal with our neuroses.
And that's the karma we have created in the planet. So each one of us has to deal with some personal karma, which comes with the neurosis. So.
Right. Well, and that's one thing you shared with us that I think, man, Andy and I definitely took home and wrote down, was like how much we waste energy with our neuroses.
This was a good one.
That was such a huge point that I've never heard it articulated until you did that. And how, like the
ruminating on useless thoughts and thinking about other people and this and that and situations like
futurizing.
That's brutal. And so that's a good practice in general, just to start to reclaiming your energy a little bit, is to let it go.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
We can start developing personal power, but trying to be in the here and now in that sense.
Yeah.
I wanted just to the whole thing was to answer what you were saying.
Okay, yeah.
About the shamanic universe. So let me just tell you that the main thing probably in the shamanic view is that we have created a collective interpretation of reality. And this interpretation is ruling even our brain function and our body, and basically limiting completely how we experience reality. So a big part of the shamanic path is to find ways to go out of that interpretation, and even to create an interpretation that can allow things that are not accepted ordinarily in our culture. Because if we don't accept it in our interpretation of reality, we cannot experience it, and we cannot act in them.
So is that what you're referring to in like the altered states of consciousness, or the ordinary and non-ordinary reality?
That's correct.
Going into the non-ordinary reality is stepping outside of that bubble that we've all collectively created?
Yeah, and basically the medicinal plants, the psychotropic plants, basically are very good elements for that.
Yeah, that's a huge point, because like there's, I mean, and maybe I'm misinterpreting this a little bit, but tell me if I'm right or wrong. Is like the more I opened up to believing like the things that I thought were impossible, like, or the things that I needed to have concrete proof that, you know, before I could believe them, when I started to open up more, it's like more came in.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
with
correct.
the shamanic universe,
Yeah,
it's like until you just become aware of it, or open that it could happen, or open to the possibilities, that's when it actually works.
Yeah, we should give a benefit of the doubt to reality in that sense.
Right.
Not define it, you know. But if you think about it, our educations defines what is reality, and what is important in that reality. And then we accept it, and that's it. Our senses, as I said, even our nervous system, our brain, basically starts to function in that parameter, and that's it.
Right. Like in the plant medicine ceremonies that I've experienced before, things happen in that ceremony which are unexplainable. And if you try to explain them, people will literally think you're crazy. And that's one thing that, you know, I've struggled with a little bit, because it's like I've had these experiences and I've had these like looks into non-ordinary reality, if you want to call it that. And then I come out of it and I'm like, was that real, or is that something that was induced by the plants? You know what I mean? And I have that sort of, I still, even though I experienced those things, I still have that, a little bit of doubt, if you want to call it that.
That's the limitation. One limitation of the plants is that you are acting also with an external agent into your system, and then you are not totally sure, or even you forget many things.
It's very fleeting. Yeah.
Therefore, it's not the only way. It's not the only technique. There are other shamanic techniques to help us to go to other states of consciousness that are not dependent on something external.
So maybe the plant medicines can help us crack that door open and make us open to the possibility of this happening. And then we can use other techniques, and maybe you can go into some of those techniques now, which are maybe you don't need to rely on those plants to do that. Yeah,
but now in the shamanic world, at least in the one that I learned, the plants are not for everyone. That's an important thing. It's not like a universal way for everybody. There are different paths within shamanism. One of those is that one, and it's for certain type of people only, not for everyone.
Can you describe quickly who that would be good for? What type of person? Like, or is it hard to prescribe that in general?
I'll tell you what I answer when people ask me that they want to go into that path. And I said, well, it's very simple, because you want to go to a magical path. You have to start giving magic the benefit of the doubt. So what you do is this. You pray to God and pray to the spirit of the plant. If it's in my path, let an experience come to me. And then you don't go and buy the plant, or you don't go and go to ceremony. You just wait. If it's for you, and you really have an honest heart, it will come to you. Then, when it comes to you, in this world, you look for a safe place that you can basically go without any type of worry, being disturbed and all that. Maybe a friend can go with you just to tonight with you. But the affair with the plant is very intimate. If you want the spirit of the plant to teach you really, we say we approach knowledge alone with the spirit of the plant. So that's very nice because nobody's guiding you or supporting you. It's your experience and the relationship with the spirit of the plant. And then also the biochemical effect of the plant, but that's secondary. The relationship with the spirit in the shamanic view is more important than how much mushrooms you ate.
Yeah, well, I learned that one during. No, it was actually my last retreat in Peru, and it was the last ceremony, and I had a little more, and I had the permission to have more from the hosts, and she let me know that I didn't need more that night. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but the thing is, I came out. It was extremely hard. But I came out of it so much better afterwards, even though it was, at the time, I thought I would never do that again. Yeah.
And, if the spirit of the plant likes you, she will start to teach you directly. And the first thing that the plant will teach you is your death.
That's what I'm working on.
That's the first thing. So if you have not experienced your death with the plant, there's still... That's just the starters. But the plan measures you. If you don't surrender to your own death, how can I teach you?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm working with right now. And I'm not through. I haven't totally accepted, and I think I have a reason. I think I have part of a reason as to why I'm not accepting that. It's a very strong attachment.
Fear of death is also a possibility.
It could be that too. It could be that too. However, yeah. I mean, it's difficult. It's really difficult. But I guess, what would you recommend in a case like that?
What would you recommend if someone's kind of at that challenge with this work?
Okay, no host, no guide, no sponsors. Do it yourself with the plant. And just fast at least one day, pray, have a nice bath, and eat the plant when the sun is starting to come down. So you can go with the energy of the night, where the unconscious gets more open, and just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, but when you have somebody outside, an interpreter or a transferential figure that is keeping an eye on you, you don't open completely because you know that somebody's supporting you.
So do it alone.
Yes.
Right. Because I was in a ceremonial context, and I would say that they do a very good job of not breaking your space. They don't touch you.
But you still know that they are there.
You still know. Because, in the hardest part of the ceremony, this is the crazy thing, the very hardest part, I was actually outside of ceremony. I actually left. I had to leave for a little bit, and I was not too far. I could hear the Arcaros and everything like that. But I was with a guide, and at points, I was reaching out to anything. I was reaching out for him, for I was just calling for anything. I'm like, Senor, and he just stood there, because he knows that's not his job, right? Yeah. And he was really good at not buying into that, and it's no, you have to have that experience right now. Yeah. So I understand the alone part.
Yeah, like my first experience with mushroom, for example, was in the jungle near Palenque in Chiapas, in Mexico. So I had enough for a couple of people. So I was left alone in the jungle and eating them when the sun was setting, and then bye-bye, see you tomorrow.
Wow,
if you come back.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm totally alone in the jungle, fresh experience.
Right.
Wow. And good luck with that one.
Well, that's amazing. Wow. So we know that now. If you really want to know if that path is for you, put the intention out, and if it comes to you somewhat organically and you're not out seeking it, then it's a path you can go down.
I mean, the spirit of the plant for us has an independent existence.
Okay.
It's not just produced by defect, and actually can have a real effect in the world and can come to you in dreams, and even if you have not eat the plant before.
I had a dream I'd like to talk about later, but we'll get into that in a little bit. What are now, okay, let's say that's not the path for somebody. What are some other alternative methods somebody can use?
Okay, first of all, any path that you take, it has to be a path that opens the unconscious and breaks your reality interpretation. That's one point. So another path it's you can go a little more contemplative, more meditative, I would say. So there are different techniques of doing that. Another path is a kind of purging your unconscious. So it tastes a little bit like psychotherapy style. Okay. Another path is start using energy and help healing. So the apprentice starts to help another healer. And basically with the hands off, you start to get sensitive and open to the different sicknesses. In Mexico, the healer would say there's a good sickness and a bad sickness. A good sickness is what we will call a natural sickness. And a bad sickness is caused by witchcraft or something like that. And so basically hands-on, you start learning that. And then another path is to do some kind of magical, let's say, ceremonies for getting in touch with the elementals first, and then other type of spirits. And of course, another is the shamanic trance practice with the different drummings and dance and things like that. So just like
so people can explore whatever those options potentially even come to them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say are maybe, is there a main goal that people are trying to get at, or is it just strictly healing, or what are the different objectives by going into this work?
Well, I think most of people come for two things. One, they want, in one way or another, to have some healing. Can be psychological, physical, spiritual, or they want to benefit other people like that. And the other motivation to come to this path is a kind of morbid curiosity, because we are thirsty for the extraordinary. We are thirsty for magic. We basically have been denying that part in us.
The so spiritual thirst, if you want to call it that.
Yes, but not only the spiritual. People they want to see things happening, magic, things moving, or ghosts, and there's this kind of thirst. And it's a little bit morbid because I don't think it's totally understood what they are looking for. Because essentially they are looking for themselves, but at that time they don't know it. So they start to come to workshops like that. Like they want to feel things, to see if it's true. You know? And slowly they realize that there's much more to find in our experience than just little things happening.
Right. So those are the main reasons people go down this path.
They usually start with that. Slowly.
So if that's the beginning path, do you have it somewhat mapped out as to the stages that people go through when they're on this journey?
It's a different thing because each one has its own life, and so there are many different things that people have to encounter. So let's put it this way: if we walk in the same street, each one will find different things that need to be integrated. So that would be your motivation. Yeah. Either to keep on or just run from it.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
That happens.
Yeah. Well, so go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't have another question.
Oh, I was going to ask you about a phenomenon that I've had repeatedly happen to me, not only in medicine, like with ayahuasca, but also just with shamanic drumming. And actually, even just last night when I was lying in bed, kind of going into like an altered state. And that is like, I feel this energy rise up and push my head up, and then it opens my mouth. Yeah. Do you know what that is? Yeah. It happens all the time to me not all the time, but many times I've had it.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Actually, in Tantra, there's a very clear knowledge about that. There's a channel that is related to Kundalini arising that instead of going in the back, goes in the front. So it goes from perineum, goes all the way to the point of the tongue.
Yes.
Actually, it's called Chandali Nadi.
Chandalini?
Yeah, Chandali.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically, in the same way that Kundalini arises in the back and starts to open the rings for the chakras, eventually Kundalini also starts to rise from the front and helps to complete the opening of the chakras. And it's very common when people have like southern rise of it, that they actually go this way and put the tongue out. This is this universal phenomenon. It doesn't matter if it was awakened by a plant, by meditation, by Kundalini practices. It's the same anatomy. It's the same dynamic.
Okay.
So it's a good sign.
That the energy is moving?
The energy is moving, and we need to open this channel to really complete the opening of the chakras.
Okay. So is that something I should
allow?
Just keep allowing.
But don't try to produce it.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. Like I was lying there and I had my hands on my chest, you know, and I do that sometimes because I find I can reflect back the heart to myself, and then I find I can like use that, and it will almost dissolve me. And I'm just kind of in this energy, and then, this phenomenon starts happening, and like it's very bizarre because like I can feel my muscles moving, but I'm not consciously controlling them, and I'll let it happen. But I've never had a clear explanation of what it was, but it's happened several times.
It's one of what the Tantras describe as kriyas, or also they are called furanas. And there are autonomous movement of the body and postures that Kundalini produces, and the purpose is to open the channels, to open the nadis, and to open the chakras.
Awesome.
It has its intelligence.
Okay, and there's more beyond that, I assume then.
Oh, yeah, it's always beyond that.
Okay.
That's the nice thing of this world and our body, our consciousness. There's always a beyond. Beyond.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like the finite trying to experience the infinite, or allowing the infinite to come in. But since it is infinite, then there's going to be an infinite manifestations of progress, or whatever you want to call it, right? Okay, cool. That's why I love having you on one-on-one. We can ask our selfish questions.
That's true.
But let's get back into serving other people and allowing this platform to share.
Are we having any questions come in?
Well, actually, there was one question coming in about, you said like doing the plant medicines alone. And he says, aren't you supposed to not do ayahuasca alone? What would your comments to that be?
Yeah, I mean, for me, having somebody to guide me, it's like if I'm going to make love with a woman, I have somebody tell me, now you touch her like this, now you do like that. It would be quite uncomfortable. It's very intimate for me, the relationship with the spirit of the plant. If you really want the spirit of the plant to be your ally, you have to be alone with the spirit of the plant. You don't need other person, and it will be an obstacle for that.
Well, I know one element of like ayahuasca or ayahuasca shamanism is eventually you go and do isolation, dieta, and you do a ceremony in isolation. So perhaps maybe you don't do that for the first try, but that is the ultimate thing. Well, not the ultimate, but that is where it goes. Like you do eventually deepen your intimate personal relationship with the spirit. And that isolation is a part of it.
Actually, sometimes as a kind of last step of teaching, they are tied up in the jungle. They tie you. And they give you the palo de cielo. El palo de cielo is the type of ayahuasca with more DMT content.
Okay.
They call it like that because the plant, instead of growing supporting, grows along without support. And this is the stick of heaven. So it's very, very powerful. Wow. So they give them a lot, and it's bye-bye.
And they tie you up.
Yeah, because it can be dangerous. You get a little bit crazy. But I mean, ayahuasca is a bit different, and let me tell you why.
Right.
Because you are not drinking the plant only.
Correct.
You're drinking a formula, a mixed. And part of the formula is the floripondio, which is of the Datura family. And the floripondio, if it's too much, is neurotoxic.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Like there are other things like would be the mushrooms or peyote, and the mushrooms that are not GMO modified.
Right.
I love these organic people that they don't buy any GMO food, and then they smoke and eat things like mushrooms and marijuana is totally modified.
Right.
Yeah. But no. So basically, you be sure that. In that, the substance that you are eating cannot really harm you if you eat more and more and more and more.
Right.
Okay. And in ayahuasca, you cannot have that luxury because is a bit neurotoxic. The floripondio, one of the plants that they use.
Okay.
So there's also.
So that's where, like in the beginning, when you're starting out working with someone who's, experienced and who makes ayahuasca, a true ayahuasquero, right? Ideally.
Yeah, they will tell you, don't drink more.
And they let them just follow their lead a little bit. But in terms of the experience you have, there is the element of you want to be alone so that you can work through your own stuff. You don't need someone consoling you or rescuing you, right? Like that's one element. Like even in my men's group, someone will be going through an emotional thing, and then the guy next to him will go and rescue him.
Yeah.
And I've actually said that. I'm like, don't rescue. Can you? I mean, this is a little bit different, change of topic, but what are your thoughts on that element of it?
Well, in our limited experience in our neurosis, we usually like either to take the role of victim or victimizer or savior. If you think about it, that's how we relate.
Triangle,
and we should not be none of those. You should not be a victim and victimizer or a savior. It's just you're a person, and that's it. And respect that the other person. A bit like what Perros would say, I don't live for your expectations, and you don't live for my expectations. Like in that sense, one should be completing oneself. And in that completeness, then we can share with others. But we start to share without being complete. And then we create a codependency that is terrible.
Right. So in that case, I guess my understanding of that might be that the person who's being rescued could be potentially losing out on that experience because there's a potential opportunity for them to grow there. However, if you rescue them, you're sort of not letting them break through that thing.
Yeah, but take it to the spiritual teaching. No, people love to go to a ceremony and be guided by the guide. Then they go to spiritual path. They love to find a guru or a lama, and basically they start to transfer in them, let's say the meaning of their path and actually their trust in the path. No, it's like if you don't trust your guru, you are lost. And eventually, then you cannot be liberated because you are still just sublimating your neurotical transference to them. It's not that you don't learn from them and you don't love them and you don't basically recognize them, but one has to stand alone in reality.
So what I hear you saying is that's kind of like basically somebody doing the work for you in a way, or perhaps like you're again, you said that transference aspect, so it's like you're hoping that they're going to be the ones to save you and therefore then without them you can't do it,
so you don't know the last
right. So eventually like you have to sort of become your own teacher.
In Zen, for example, there's a saying, if you encounter the Buddha in the road, kill him. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Our friend Alexander Boldazar would love that.
I think he's actually said that quote.
Oh, has he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
it's beautiful because
find the Buddha on the road, kill him.
Okay, can you explain that a little bit? Like what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah. Well, let's put it in more Judeo-Christian way.
Okay,
right.
Sure.
Like we say Judeo-Christian, we teach Sunday school and in the synagogue that God has created us in His likeness and equalness. But what actually has happened with all the basically the dogma and the introject and all that in our reality, we actually have created a God. And it's the one that we believe or not, or we are fighting against it, or we are in love Him, or we are saved in that grace. But it's a creation of us. So eventually, if you really want to have really a face-to-face with God, you have to kill that interpretation of God. So you have to kill the God that you have created.
Okay.
Because it's an illusion.
Right.
Can be very intelligent and full of knowledge of the Bible and all that, but it's just an interpretation, and we need basically to go beyond that.
As someone that has so many students in your work, how I'm sure you've come across that people have put you on this pedestal or a guru-ness. How do you personally kind of do your best to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, if that happens, I try my best to slap them.
Yeah.
Like I tell you a good story. Comes a woman and says, I have to talk to you very seriously in a retreat. And it's a woman, I don't know who is she, but, because in Mexico there are like maybe 150, 200 people sometimes. So she comes and she starts to tell me, I think you reject me. You are always making a bad face and you reject me. And I told her, no, sorry, you're totally wrong. How can I reject you if I don't even know who you are?
Mm.
And she got offended.
Ouch, Carlos.
So she was strictly projecting onto you.
Yeah, that's the transference thing. Wow. Transference is to put unconsciously the expectation to be satisfied by your daddy or your mommy. Mm-hmm. And basically, magically, you think that your life will have meaning if you surrender to that figure.
Right.
So that's very dangerous because imagine if you basically reinforce those attitudes, then everybody's expecting me, for example, or somebody else to solve the ultimate point in their life. That would be for enlightenment or when they die. Or the first thing that maybe they will think is, I should call my guru because I'm dying.
Yeah.
And you should call yourself if you realize that you're dying. And maybe you have time to call your guru to say bye-bye or thank you, whatever, but not call your guru to help you in your last step.
Right. So in the end, what you're saying is it's a solo journey and you got to do it on your own.
But not only on the end. Every day is a solo journey. And because you are alone, you are grounded in yourself, that's the reason you can share yourself with others.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So let's say, for example, you're on that path and you're working towards those goals. What does it look like for somebody who starts getting closer and closer to that? What are some of the transformations that take place within the individual?
Okay. One good there are basically for me two measurement points here. One is how is the self-importance in the person, how much the person gets really offended if they face something that is not agreeing with them, how much they feel that they are doing it very well, and they show it. Self-importance is very difficult to disguise. When you are outside, you can see it very well. And the other point is how much the person really spontaneously is demonstrating that they're loving other people. So if a person is always like basically criticizing or measuring oneself with others, if the person is always trying to gain a personal benefit, it's very bad signs for the spiritual path. But if you see a person that is naturally giving, and in that sense, somebody offends them and they don't really care, they don't take themselves too seriously, they don't take people too seriously, it's a good sign.
Right. So basically what you're saying is, in a sense, like that ego dissolution is happening there. So they're not so caught up in who they think they are, but they're also like ready to give as much as possible to other people.
Yeah, you could say in the Adler point of view, we accept that we're little people, but because we accept it, then we can start growing.
Ah, interesting.
If you don't accept it, you will never start growing.
Right.
I wanted to switch gears maybe a little bit, but it could be. You have another question?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Remember yours, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Because one element that's come to me on just my personal spiritual path a lot is the tremendous, I don't want to say the word power, but how serving like legitimate humility is. And I felt like the more just humble I can like be, and that I don't want to. It's a tricky word because I don't want to make it like I'm not trying to be humble, because there's a superficial humble, but then there's like a genuine humble. Do you know what I mean?
Self-important humbleness.
Right, right. No, I'm trying to be like just like when I'm maybe in the middle of a ceremony and just in the lowest of lows, and you're just like, wow, I'm really in a lonely, dark, sad place right now, and it's humbling. It's like, wow, I'm humbled as like a human being. I'm like squashed.
If we're humble, our cup is empty, so we can be filled up with something new.
Right.
If we're not humble, the cup is always full, and we don't accept anything new.
Right.
That's for sure.
And you know what I found? What kind of turned me, like if I was going down, 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 dark, 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 you know what would help me like bottom out was just self-compassion. I would be like, hey, you're trying and you're showing up and you're sincere with your effort. You know, you're sincere with just showing up and being alive. And, you know, that's a little bit of self-compassion I found would like just bottom me out, you know, and then I could turn it into gratitude and boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, I call it a bit self-dignity, in the sense if we are doing our best, honestly, then you have this kind of dignity that is okay. It's what.
What else can I ask?
What else can I do? No,
Yeah.
I'm doing my best. But if we are not doing our best, we can never have that kind of dignity.
Totally. Cool. No, that's very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, well, what I was going to ask is one of the bigger ideas these days is to like live with purpose, have meaning behind your life. And if you go into this sort of place of, ego disillusion and you're not too high on yourself and you're giving up as much love to people as possible, and you're just sort of in this beingness. You know, some people have trouble with that because they feel like their life needs to have purpose and they need to have meaning. And if they don't have that, they do feel lost. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's in that place where they don't have a lot of purpose and they can't find meaning in their life, where would you start with somebody like that?
Well, the thing is that we have solved a lot the idea that people should find their mission in life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because mission will propose something concrete that one has to do and achieve and all that, and it's a misunderstanding. I tell people, if you want to know what's the mission in life, look to your body. Your body is basically representing all your unfulfilled karma, all your lessons. That's your mission. Be yourself, resolve yourself. And where we get meaning is actually when we can express our true self. And what's the expression of our true self? Is love. So anytime that you express real love, even though a little drop, meaning is there. And love can be expressed in so many ways. There's not like, okay, I'm going to do foundation to help this. No, it can be expressed in any sense.
Right.
But then when we express love, comes from our true self. And the experience of our true self is what gives meaning, not an action.
Right.
So to be is what gives us meaning.
Right. So to be is what gives us meaning. Because
experiencing your true self.
Because so much of what I think we see in the West especially is like, how much are you doing for other people? Mm-hmm. And if you do enough and you help enough people and you go and save this, organization, or you go orphanage, or you go save the environment, or you go do this and you go do that. Yep. And there's all these different things, and it seems like that's what people are sort of measuring on if you're a good person or not.
And if you measure in that, basically we increase self-importance.
Yeah. Right. So that so then how do we get out of that cycle? Because people do have like the desire to do good. They do have the desire to help other people, but I guess go do that stuff, but then don't think that you're important or better because you did it.
No, don't do it for a purpose except enjoy.
Do it because you enjoy it.
Yeah. So if you are helping somebody, it's because you are enjoying it, and that is satisfying enough. That right. Joy in the action, it gives the satisfaction. You don't need somebody to applaud you because you are doing great.
Right.
And the thing, as I say, we put this idea that we need to achieve and do things, and then people have to admire it, and I have to be very happy with my achievement. And we just forget that basically the idea is to live, to love, to enjoy life, to share with others. That's it. It's not so complicated.
This is switching gears again a little bit, but let's say in Western society, in Canada, if you want to use that as the example, what are some of like the biggest neuroses and issues that you see among people that are just really common because of our culture?
From the outside, I mean, I'm Canadian, but I am Mexican.
I'm just saying, like, if you're observing.
But I see in Canada a lot this idea of respecting very much the other and making others respect your space and your thing. So everybody's very political correct and all this thing.
Yeah.
But in that process, for me, like spontaneity is lost.
The spontaneity.
Yeah, like basically
because you're all uptight. You're afraid to say the wrong thing.
because you're afraid to say something to the other person. So basically, you're frozen.
Yeah.
So do you think that means that?
And that's where we live in the north, right?
Yeah.
We're frozen. It's like a product of the climate.
Do you think Canadians, or maybe you could maybe say Americans, whatever, are just too concerned about like getting their feelings hurt? So so everyone's like, okay, let's be really careful with everything we say to make sure we don't hurt anyone's feelings.
Yeah, I think it's more Canadian than American, but
yeah, you could be right about that.
But probably it's the north, because in Sweden it's a bit like that also, or more extreme, probably.
Right.
Wow.
But yeah, I think, as I said, we're little kids that have been hurt, and we don't want to be hurt, and we're in a Canadian society, we are good people, so we don't want to hurt.
Yes.
But in this,
so
trying to not hurt, the
Yeah.
intention is good, but then spontaneity is lost. Then a bit of the ordinary, just joy of life is lost. Like the volume of the passion in life is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Just
because
people
we
are
want
reserved.
Respect.
Right. That's an interesting trade-off, though, isn't it? Like, it's
So-
just like, because people are actually trying to do good and trying not to cause additional harm, but at the same time, by doing that, you're restricting yourself and you're not being the fullest expression of yourself.
Exactly.
Even risking the fact that you might say something incorrect that might offend somebody.
Yeah, because then as I said, everybody is wary of not being offended and not offending others. And if you're playing that game, then if you tell me something, I will be offended right away. So
Right.
then we have to speak about it.
Right.
Everybody here speaks about
What
the
the
things
issue
and they
was.
express, and it's like, well, it's not so important.
Right.
Just say
Right.
it. That's
So-
it.
if
So the
two
antidote to that
individuals-
would be like
Right.
to not take it so seriously.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, you have to be able to not take yourself so seriously. And so, would you say that maybe the cultural healing that needs to kind of happen here, or growth, perhaps, would you say, is on the individual level of people just like not being so. What is it?
Just express a little more. Of course, negative things, you have to restrain yourself. You don't want to harm people.
Right.
But start with the nice feelings.
Right.
If you like somebody, just express it, but not express it with the rigidity of, I appreciate your presence. Just touch a little bit, express a little bit. Start with the good things. I think that's very safe, because if you start with the good things, you're going to respect the other person, but you are going slowly to recuperate this joy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've kind of gone into sort of the cultural neurosis a little bit, if you will. Do we want to dive back into shamanism specifically? Do you have any questions that you have thought about?
Wow. I mean, in terms of your personal experience, how did you learn shamanism, or I mean, just talk to us a little bit about your experience with shamanism and how you've learned to understand it and where you learned it, and and I understand that Ontogony is going to be offering a shamanism course later this year or something.
I don't think this year. I don't.
Oh, okay. Later in the year.
Probably next year.
If you were to teach a shamanism thing, what kind of things would you start to teach?
Okay. One fundamental thing in shamanism is to feel subtle energies. If in the world of magic, if you don't feel energies, you don't survive.
Okay.
I know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because you use energy for healing, you use energy for cleansings, you use energy for protections, and you use energy also to sustain your experience, to open a reality. So cultivation of energy is very important.
Right.
So that would be one.
And that's one of your
part.
universal things too. You've said that cultivation of energy and the feeling of subtle energies is, you've extracted that from a lot of different paths, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and then slowly the idea for me is that people are trained first more as healers, of course not as brujos or sorcerers, but as healers, and eventually transform the healing path into a real shamanic part, a real path for knowledge and freedom.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing in the Carlos Castaneda books. They talk about being a man of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing. That's a big theme in that book. Can you elaborate a little more on what that means?
Yeah, basically, Castaneda is always great to read. The idea is we are trapped in the what he used to call the first attention. Basically, first attention is the ordinary reality as we know it. And then the second attention from Castaneda will go more to the attention of the dream body and these non-ordinary realities and all that. So that will be more what we call usually the healer and the sorcerer level. But then he speaks of the third attention. The third attention is basically where you lose your human form and can unify with the spirit of everything. And this is what gives knowledge. This is what constitutes the man or the woman of knowledge, the one that can penetrate this third attention from Castaneda's perspective.
And if somebody does manage to get to that level and achieve that, how can they come back and how can they help serve humanity and serve people?
Okay.
Or can they?
Yeah, the thing is not they are free, probably, for the first time, to choose what to do. So that means that even though we can be very nice people and helping people like that, we are not really choosing. We don't have the capacity to choose. We're responding to our karma, to our, let's say, engraved personality traits and all that, but we're not really choosing. So if a person like that chooses to come back, it will be a little bit like the idea of the bodhisattva in Buddhism. They can choose and benefit, or they can choose just and be without interfering with anybody else in that sense.
So they're actually operating from true free choice at that point.
Yeah, that would be the idea. Yeah.
Do you have any personal shamanic teachers that you've worked with, and what backgrounds did they have, and what did they teach you?
I had quite a few.
Yeah, in Mexico?
Yeah, well, in Mexico, not shamanic. The healer and sorcery tradition is very strong. Yeah. But the thing is, when the Spanish conquest Latin America in general, they were very good because, very good in
conquering,
in killing people.
Yeah, right.
But the Spanish Inquisition was in his peak. So what they would do, they would come and kill literally the ruling class and the men and women of knowledge. So what the Spanish left were the healers and the sorcerers only. And also these healers and sorcerers, they basically created the syncretism with Catholicism. So I studied with like 3 of them, and I was not satisfied because I was looking for the old knowledge. And I was very blessed in finding through a friend of mine that we were learning acupuncture together, of a woman that belonged to a tradition that was not touched by the Spanish conquest. And it was not touched because before the Spanish, this was a kind of secret society of shamans, let's say. And when the Spanish came, they could not identify them. So they kept themselves underground. And the beautiful thing is that they didn't have this mix with Catholicism at all. Pure knowledge.
That's what you want, yeah.
And we were very lucky to be accepted. Actually, they didn't want to accept me because I was white.
Right.
And then they said, no, you are going to die. You're not going to be able to take it. No?
They didn't think you would be able to handle it.
Yeah, so I had to negotiate a lot, and they put me in a test, and then I started learning.
How old were you at this time, if I can ask?
At the time I was, I think, 20.
Okay.
So that was my first, like, really formal. I learned with other ones, but they didn't really have a tradition to teach. Mm-hmm. This one even had a name, Churipacua in Tarascan, that means where darkness becomes light. That's the name of the tradition.
Wow.
It's a beautiful tradition.
Yeah.
And then when I started traveling, I studied shamanism with a Brazilian guy, a macumbero and a great healer, psychic, Ivan Trilla. Then I studied in Bali with a couple of Balians or shamans also, I studied in India with some other.
The secret society, when the first one you spoke of, did they use any plant medicines, or what was their style?
This tradition, no. This tradition, they didn't use any. They used plants, but not
like
psychotropic plants. Actually, they had no use for them at all. But they were having very powerful magic. They didn't really need it.
Yeah.
too
So,
much.
are you allowed to share anything about that in terms of like, how would they induce you into a non-ordinary state of consciousness?
Well, they had different ways. One, they used to, the Tarascan culture, they built pyramids also. They were not the Aztec or Maya.
Right.
It's another culture. And they used to go to the pyramids to basically, would say, take energy from there. And that type of energy already gives you some help. They also did a lot of out-of-body experience practices.
Okay.
They used to train, basically, even to go inside another animal or another person and like that. That gives you also a different perspective of reality.
So not shape-shifting, but like remote viewing or something?
No.
No? Okay.
I'll tell you, you will not believe it, but it was
man,
part of my
this
training.
whole show's kind of about like bending the boundaries of belief. So no, but
So for a certain time, for example, Wednesdays at 8 p.m., I used to live in Mexico City. They were far away. They were like 12 hours driving. I would have to go and enter into a woman that was a medium and healing her body, people.
wow.
So every Wednesday I'll have to do that until they saw that I could do it, and then okay. They used to teach you a technique, and when you basically could dominate the technique, they will teach you another. So they will never teach you unless you achieve something. So it was very, very carefully taught.
So you were able. You were able.
Yeah, that's weird. I
know.
It's
Wednesday,
weird.
8:00. You would go into another woman's.
So I will go to my room.
Medium.
I will go to a room and go into trance.
Yeah.
Go out of my body. Go into that woman, and then.
So when you go out of your body, is it kind of like we talked before? Like you would leave and you'd be in your dream body.
Yeah.
And you would go in your dream body to a medium. Who would you ask her to go in?
No, she will be in a trance already, and I will go in and then take the body and start healing people, and then. Wow. Yeah, it was amazing.
Through that other body.
Through the other body, yeah. So you can understand the type of things that happen in the rural Mexico.
Sure.
Would you always go to the same medium, or would you?
Yeah.
Okay. You had an agreement.
Yeah, there's an agreement. Yeah.
Wow, that's. Part of me is like, I really want to experience that,
Yeah.
I guess you got to practice.
It would take some years of practice.
A lot of practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the starting point then, for practicing a technique like that?
Well, in the school, the first thing that you need to be accepted. I'll tell you the first thing. So you will be accepted, and then they will do a magical thing that we call cruzas or crossings. So basically, it's a kind of preparation with magic that you are injected, let's say, with the essence of something in your body to protect you or help you. So the first thing that she said, well, okay, I'm going to cross you with gold and black hen feather.
Black hen feather.
Yeah, and so, well, gold for what? So you have money always. Okay, that's good. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And the black hen, so you don't catch any sexual sickness.
Sexual sickness.
Yeah, because contrary to Mexican culture, they were totally free sex people. They are totally non-traditional Mexican at all.
Yeah.
So they were worried because they had that type of life that people will bring sexual sickness to them. So imagine the practicality, no? So yeah, you're going to do many things, but let's start with money and keep healthy. So you enjoy sex and you don't get sick.
Right.
We started like that.
That's not a bad place to start, right?
Yeah. Then the second step, let's go to important ceremony place, pyramid, and let's call the gods, and so it starts slowly.
So, what in your day-to-day practice now? So, when you wake up in the morning, or do you have any rituals or any things that you do on a daily basis to maintain your health, maintain your well-being?
7 o'clock, wake up. Let's wake up the kids. Help for breakfast.
That's an important ritual.
And stimulate them to go to school and convince them that it's going to be good for something one day. And that's really the daily ritual. And take the dog out and give some food to the dog.
So I live life, basically. Yeah. That's what you're saying.
I didn't hear coffee in there. No?
Oh, yeah, coffee. We love coffee. I love coffee.
All right, good. Okay, all right.
You know, in Mexico, when I was a kid, we used to go to bed with the milk coffee. So part of our dinner always, even if you were a kid, was coffee.
Wow. It with caffeine, you can still fall asleep.
Yeah, like when I started traveling, I heard that people were affected by coffee. And that's because, it was part of our...
You're just like drinking coffee all the time?
And no. Actually, no. We used to have in the morning and in the evening coffee.
Okay.
Like you have a glass of milk or something.
Interesting.
Milk coffee.
Milk coffee. Yeah. Sometimes because stimulants can actually have a sedative effect on some people,
also,
right?
Yeah. Especially in kids.
In kids.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In kids,
that's pretty counterintuitive. You would never think that, right?
Yeah. And good antioxidants and
we've been going for a good. Let's see here. We're at an hour, 15 minutes right now. If you were to give like an overall prescription for like good health and just maintaining yourself properly, and what would that look like? What kind of points would you tell somebody to do to maintain good health and good state of being?
Okay, first start with the basic, like food. If we start with food, what I recommend, eat a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Of everything. It's not to follow a special diet. It's just find fresh food, good food. And have a variety in your diet, because then you allow your body to take whatever the body needs.
Yeah.
If you just have some specific type of food, then probably you need supplementation.
Right.
Okay. So variety.
Yeah, variety is good, and not overdo it any kind. Right. That's one principle. The other principle is when you are already more than 45, it's good to think in supplementation, herbal or type of supplementation, because the body will need it. That's an option. Sleep well.
That's big.
If you don't sleep well, it's not only that you cannot get really the rest and the self-regulation that the body needs. Sleeping well is important if you want later on to go into a dream practice of any kind. And if you don't sleep well, you cannot practice. And you are missing a great opportunity of practice, because we are very busy doing things when we're awake, especially in a city like this. But when you're asleep anyway, you're sleeping, and instead of just sleeping a bit like we sleep usually without knowing anything, you can sleep and do practice.
Right. I think we just cracked the door on another subject too, but keep going. Yes.
So then sleep, and of course you need to do some exercise. And if you're doing some exercise, it would be good to do some exercise that bring some benefits with to your inner energy.
Right.
Not only external muscular tendon bones, but something that basically also makes your subtle energy stronger. Something like with Qigong or something like yoga. I love martial arts as a complement of exercise. But with this inner view, because some martial arts are like external sports, but we need to also exercise our energy. That's very, very important. So in general, it's what everybody...
So fairly simple was what you'd recommend. But what really struck the chord of me was interesting was the dreams, and I don't know how much time you want to go for still, but maybe we could talk a little bit about dreams.
Well, do you want to do it this time, or want to save it for next time?
That's up to you. What do you think?
I think we'll save it.
Save dreams for next time.
To keep this one as shamanism, and then because the dream therapy is an awesome course that you offer and Ontogony offers, and that I've participated in. and it is a whole other ball of wax. It's
But
a
good. Just let me tell you a
Okay.
fourth thing that is
Oh, the
amongst
fourth
fourth thing.
Yeah.
We need to cultivate observation,
observation.
mindfulness, awareness. That is a most. In the same ways, very necessary to eat and to sleep. We need to do that because that's the only thing that will assure our transformation, our
Right.
growth. So the other ones that I said are good to be here.
Yeah.
Right.
But this one is the alchemical element.
Mm.
Without observation, without expanding our awareness, we cannot really grow. We cannot do anything real in this life. And it should be as part of, as important part as eating or sleeping. Do something to increase the clarity of your observation.
So like meditation.
Like meditation.
That's probably a great place to start.
Yeah.
For most people. Yeah.
And observation can mean like observing your like the world around you, and then
Yeah.
also the world within you, and like your behaviors and
Mhm.
the things that make you upset or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah. Be present and observe. Observe.
Cool.
That's awesome.
All right. Let's wrap it up.
You want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was great. I know. It's leave something for next
Well, we
time.
can dreams seem like a big subject for you, so the next time we can dive into dreams
if we're lucky, right?
if we're lucky.
Cool. Well, Carlos, thanks for coming on. Really
Thank you for
appreciate
the
it. It's
invitation.
always super interesting for us and very exciting for us to have you just answer our crazy questions and have fun doing so. So everyone, thank you for joining us wherever you may be in the world. Really appreciate you tuning in. A like, comment, or share goes a long way to help just share this conversation and to support whether it's Carlos and Ontogony or us in Vancouver Real. We really appreciate it. And if you want to come out to the free event, we'll be hosting another collaboration event between Floathouse, Ontogony, and Vancouver Real. It will be on April 11th, and that'll be at the Ontogony Center in Kitsilano. So come on out, and we're going to have Carlos just, I think, kind of talking to the Shamanic universe as well, but you can ask questions, and he'll give probably a good history. He always dives into, he likes to set you up with a good foundation, and so come on out. It's free.
Do we have an event up
Yep,
anywhere for that?
The link's actually in this post, so go and the link's right there, and there's a Facebook event page, so come and join us, and we'd love to see you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you for
you.
coming back, and
Until next time.
to whatever is.
To whatever is.